We believe in God, the eternal Father.
We believe in the
and in His Son,
Bible
Jesus
to be the
Christ.
Word of God.
We believe in being honest, true, chaste, benevolent, virtuous.
We believe that
and
through
doing
the
good to
atonement
all
of
men.
Christ, all mankind
We
will
also
be saved
believe the
by
Book of Mormon to be the
obedience
Word
the
of God.
We may say that we follow the admonition of Paul. We believe all things. We hope all things. We have endured many things.
Welcome to Why I Believe on the Mormon Channel. Today our guest is Shaunti Wooden, who is a two-time cancer survivor from a very young age. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, yep.
First of all, welcome to the Why I Believe program.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Give a quick summary of some of the things that you have experienced, including cancer and some of the other things in your life.
Okay, Rick. I am a two-time cancer survivor, childhood cancer survivor. I have relearned how to walk twice. My legs are full of staples and screws and rods. I have an experimental hip. I'm half bald on the back of my head. I'm short for my age. And I have cardiomyopathy, which means an enlarged and failing heart, as a result of the chemotherapy. It makes a great story, and I'm happy that I'm still alive to share it.
Well, I look at you, and you are the picture of joyfulness. And I have seen you walking, and I have tried to race against you walking. Because I know how fast you walk. So whatever the experimental hip is that they gave you, it must be a turbo-powered hip or something.
Yes.
Shaunti, let's start from your youth. You were about 3 years old when your first cancer was discovered. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I began to crawl again because my hip hurt so much to walk. Mm-hmm. So my parents took me to the doctors, and an x-ray revealed a tumor the size of a golf ball on my right hip. And they found out it was Ewing sarcoma, which is a malignant type of bone cancer. The chances of my survival peaked at 30%. And the doctors sent me immediately to Primary Children's Medical Center here in Salt Lake City, where they decided the protocol for treating me would be chemotherapy and radiation and finally surgery. So that was our battle plan to save my life. You know, suddenly I was on the battlefield of life here at a very young age. I remember my mom telling me when she heard the news, I was sitting there in the hospital bed just flipping the TV channels like it was a computer game or something, and still unaware of the devastating news really and what that meant for me. And it was too much for her to bear. And so she had to leave the hospital room and was just overwhelmed and walking down the hallway. And she said she was just, she was praying and was filled with this peace. And the primary song, I Feel My Savior's Love, came to mind. And it comforted her. And she knew that things were going to be okay. She didn't know what that meant. But and I think, you know, little tender mercies of the Lord that we saw, that was the first of many that we saw along the way.
Well, knowing you as I do, you're a very happy person. I can imagine you as a 3-year-old being just joyful and happy, and your mom is concerned, of course, about your future.
Yes.
You know, not knowing if you'll be able to walk and so on. You were 3 years old and you were experiencing chemotherapy, radiation treatment.
Yes,
And
yes.
what
So
was
it started with the chemotherapy, and for this treatment, I was an outpatient, so I would go and receive the chemotherapy shot, and then would go home. And it would make me so nauseated and sick that I would be holding a bowl on my lap because I would be throwing up on the way home, and it just makes you so sick that even when you can't throw up anymore, you're just dry heaving, and you become really weak and frail, and you lose all of your hair. I remember it was Easter time, so we went out and bought bonnets. That's how I covered my bald head the first time. So I had a drawer full of bonnets. But the chemotherapy makes you very sick.
Yeah.
So that was the first. I remember actually at one time you receive so many shots and your veins start becoming scarred and bruised, and it makes it more and more difficult for them to find a vein to give you your chemotherapy shot in. And so I remember one time after they tried on my hands and my arms, they couldn't find a vein. And, a half dozen nurses had tried. And finally, the doctor came in and said, "I'm sorry, Shante, we're just going to have to give you your chemotherapy shot in a vein in your head or your foot." I thought, what? I didn't even know I had veins in my head or my foot. And I was sure that would hurt a lot more. My arms by this time were tough. Like, I learned how to take a shot. So I was nervous, and I asked them to wait, and I said a prayer to Heavenly Father, and I explained to him how important it was for me to have my chemotherapy shot in my arm. And I begged for his help, and I said amen, and I asked the nurses to try one more time on my arms, and they just looked at me, okay, are you sure? And they peeled back a Band-Aid, and it was a bruised vein. But they were successful that time, and I knew why.
Yeah.
To the very last chemotherapy treatment, I prayed before every chemotherapy shot. And to the very last time, I was able to receive them in my arms. I felt that was a great blessing. And I learned early on that the Lord knows what's important to us is important to the Lord. And he's very aware. I think nothing is too insignificant for him. And beyond his reach.
Yeah. What a wonderful prayer as a young child. You were just 3 at that age, or had you been going through chemo for a while?
The first time was between the ages of 3 and 5.
Now, what were the prospects there? You mentioned 30% chance as the peak. So you were anywhere under that of the opportunity to remain alive. And
right.
What happened? Did they discover that the chemo and the radiation worked? Or did they?
Yeah, so then I had radiation treatments, and for those, I remember, can I tell you a little bit about those?
Sure.
I remember I had to lay very still on this hard x-ray table, all alone in a room, because radiation is like the rays of the sun times 1,000. It's dangerous and it's radioactive, so no one else can be in the room at the same time while you're there being just blitzed by it, and just in hopes that this will kill the cancer cells. Who knows what else is killing, but you want it to get those cancer cells. And so I just remember having to sit really, really still, and I was all alone, and I was scared. I didn't want to go in there all by myself, and I would scream, and I would just, when they would come to take me away for the radiation treatments, I would cling to my mother's hair, and I would just hang on to it, and they'd have to, like, yank me away while I was screaming. I think I ended up with clumps of her hair in my hands at times. But, they got smart, because one time they said, "Come here, Shante, we want to show you something." And they showed me a TV monitor outside the room, and then they showed me a camera inside the room, and that's how they monitored me, so they could make sure everything was okay. And they said, "Look, you're on TV." I thought, wow, this is great. And so after that, my attitude totally changed. I thought I was on TV every time. So I would wear my best dress, my best Sunday dress, my most beautiful bonnet. And I would bring my doll. I had a doll that my mom and I decided whatever I went through, my doll would go through. So I had a buddy. So when my hair fell out came the scissors, and her hair came off too. But Rick, you should see her now. She did not recover very well.
Your hair grew back.
Exactly.
But she didn't.
Exactly.
I heard also that when your hair grew back in, you were glad for the color it grew back in as.
Yes, I'm so grateful that my hair came back in red.
That's great.
Yes.
The cancer did not go away from chemo and radiation. It was still there, right? There was an operation that was needed?
Exactly. So it shrunk the tumor, which is good, shrunk it enough for them to be able to operate, with hopes that the operation would be successful.
I see.
Due to the location of the tumor, however, they needed to amputate my entire right leg because of the location on my hip. There would be, to prevent it from spreading and to basically take care of it all, they needed to just remove the entire leg. There would be nothing to connect the leg onto. I mean, they do advanced hip replacements nowadays, but I don't even have the bone structure to support an advanced hip replacement. And that's how massive this surgery was. So,
well, you're sitting here in front of me with 2 legs right now.
Yay!
So there was a miracle in your life.
Exactly.
What happened?
I had 2 blessings. And in both, one for my father, one for my grandfather, and in both blessings, I was promised that I would be able to walk, run, and dance again someday after the surgery. We didn't know how that would happen. We planned on me losing my leg. My parents recorded me running with 2 legs and said, "Run, Shantae, run! Remember what it feels like to run, because you're never going to feel that again."
Just to have that video and that experience and to look back on.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was the mentality that we checked into the hospital with the night before the surgery. The bone surgeon came into my hospital room and said, "I have an idea. I feel like we need to try to save your leg." And he explained an experimental surgery where he removed my hip and ilium and everything in that area and replaced it with an experimental bone graft and 2 screws. The 2 screws would hold it all together. And hopefully there would be some mobility. But it was not guaranteed.
But you'd get to keep the leg.
Keep the leg, but I may not ever have use of it again. And we understood that. But of course, it was worth a try.
Sure.
So the next day after the surgery, I was in a body cast, and I still had my leg, minus my hip and my ilium. And so now the test began to see if it would work. So I was in a body cast for 6 months after that. And if you're to picture a body cast, just picture a stick figure that you would draw on a piece of paper. And that's what you look like and feel like. You can't sit up. I mean, you really can't move. You are a stick figure. And at that time, the doctors said, "You'll probably just spend most of this time in bed." I mean, what else can you do, really?
Yeah, really.
And so I did for 3 days. I was in bed. I did all of my puzzles and cartoons and coloring books, and I was bored, and I wanted to do something else. And so my dad was brilliant. He got a skateboard, and he put some padding on it and duct tape and swivel wheels on the bottom. And they would just put me down on my stomach on the skateboard, and I would push myself around with my arms.
So you were fully mobile.
That's how I got around. It was great. So I went from not being able to join everyone in the kitchen table for dinner to I would just, because you couldn't sit up, so they would just put my food on the floor and I would just eat it like a puppy from my skateboard. So you always have options, right, Rick?
Yes.
We always have options.
You were very flexible. How old were you when this happened, when the surgery happened?
4. So I was 4
You were
years
4
old.
years old. And it left you without a hip. So without a bone structure to connect to your leg to make it move.
Exactly. It's, in fact, to this day, I go see my hero bone surgeon, and he is always amazed at the mobility that I have in my leg. He'll always say, "Touch your toes and stand on one foot and bend over," and I do it. To me, it's just like no sweat. And he's always like, "Wow, that's amazing." But he was truly inspired. He was a great man. The Lord definitely worked through him.
That's great.
So then the test began after they took off the body cast 6 months later. The test to see if I would learn how to walk again. And I remember they gave me a shiny little walker, and I would lean on it and kind of inch myself forward and drag my leg. Now, if you don't use your muscles, you lose them, right?
Yeah.
And so after 6 months, then obviously my leg muscles were really weak, especially my right leg with the new hip. It was fragile and weak. So I would turn purple and blue, and I would be sweating, and it was shaking. So it was a big deal. I remember the day I made it out into the hallway. That was big.
Were you in the hospital? Or
yes,
in your home?
definitely
Okay.
in the hospital for all of this. And I was looking around, and that's when I saw at the very end of the hallway, saw the playroom. I'd been there before, but I had never walked there by myself after the surgery. And I thought, I had to walk down there by myself.
Right, with your walker.
With the walker.
Uh-huh.
And we knew that if I could do that the doctors would let me go home.
Oh, okay.
Just, I guess, prove that I could
and
be
you wanted
mobile.
to go home, I'm sure.
Yes, you want to go home. The hospital I was in is a wonderful place. They take great care of you, but it literally is a battleground for life, and you feel that even as a child. One day I had a roommate who was running up and down the hall in a new Christmas dress she'd been given, and the next day she had passed away.
Oh.
And you see death up close, and you're reminded that life is fragile and temporary, and things become crystal clear in regards to life.
Yeah.
And in a sense it is like almost like a physical prison, because you're not free to go do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of internal reflection comes in.
But you're trying to get free.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So then I learned how to walk again. Uh-huh. I did that by walking to one more doorway down each day, getting closer to the hall, getting closer to the playroom. And as I did that, I would stick my head in the door and say, "Hi, I'm going to the playroom." And the next door down, the next patient, "Guess where I'm going? I'm going to the playroom. I'm walking there all by myself." And I think I did that to every door every single day. I think they started wondering, "What's taking you so long? Go." So, but one day I finally made it. I made it to the playroom, and I felt so victorious that I could prove that I could walk again. The doctor sent me home, and I walked for a few more months with the walker, and then I was free. I was free of it. My leg, of course, was shorter than the other one because it had been attached up higher, and so I suddenly had a couple inches difference, and so I just started walking on my toe from that early age. I considered myself a half ballerina there, and it honestly didn't bother me. Growing up, walking
Wow.
with that. Since then, it's my legs are now the same length. I can tell you about how that.
Yeah. And we're gonna get to that in a few minutes.
Good. Okay.
As we go chronologically through your life, because you've had
great.
a lot of interesting experiences. Before we do that, let me remind our listeners you're listening to Why I Believe on the Mormon Channel. And please, we invite you to download this program and any other program on the Mormon Channel by going to radio.lds.org and listen to them at your convenience, anytime. Today our guest is Shaunti Wooden, who is a multiple cancer survivor, as well as many other afflictions in your life that you have endured and overcome and just done amazing things. You're a miracle. I can imagine your orthopedic surgeon being so happy to see you because you are his miracle girl. Let's talk about what happened after that. You learned to walk with one leg that was 3 inches shorter, no hip bone, but some sort of experimental attachment that
two screws
that attached your leg to your, I guess, hip structure. And from there, 4 years old, you learned to walk again. What are your thoughts on that? What did you see as your? Did you see this as a challenge, or did you just plow ahead in life? What was your attitude at that point?
Obviously, I was young at the time and very influenced by my mother, and I remember scenes and I remember feelings from that time, and I know that. Thanks to my mom's great influence, we were 100% positive. Even though there was the chance that the chance of my survival peaked at 30%. So even though there was a great chance that I would not survive, my mom never discussed that. People came to see me in the hospital. Some relatives came to see me with the assumption of, let's see Shaunti, before she goes.
Yeah.
And my mom literally stopped them at the door. No one with that attitude was even allowed near me.
Oh, wow.
And it was just always completely positive. And I always just expected I would survive. And it was we just took things one day at a time. At one point when I was in the body cast, at home. My mom was pregnant. She had me and my little brother, and we had done laundry downstairs and needed to get upstairs. So we were all there at the bottom of the stairs, me with my body cast, my mom pregnant, all the laundry, and then her baby to carry upstairs. And it was a point of exhaustion for her. And I think she just said, oh, how are we going to get up the stairs? and she...
I want to hear the end of the story.
And she tells me that I said, I know, Mom. We are going to get upstairs step by step by step. And she said, that was a point of reflection for her. And she always remembers me saying that. And how that's really how we approached my cancer. We never knew the end result. We never knew how things were going to work out, what's around the next corner. I think it's probably good we don't know, because I think things would be so overwhelming. But if we just take it one step at a time, that's how I learned how to walk again.
Yeah.
Was one step at a time.
What
we don't have to do it
principle.
all. Yeah, we don't have to do it all at once.
Yeah. Well, your leg had been saved, but were you cancer-free? Was there a chance that would come back?
I was in relapse, meaning there was no sign of the cancer, but until you hit the 5-year mark, you are not cured. And so I was in relapse, and I went to school, and I played soccer. I did all the things that I felt like a normal kid should do. My brothers played soccer, so I wanted to play soccer. And I started swimming and did all kinds of just fun things. I started learning to play the piano, took piano lessons because I'd always loved doing that. And I just went to school, and I was loving living life. And then in the middle of my first grade year, at a routine checkup at the doctor's, they found the cancer had relapsed. It had come back and spread throughout my body. It landed on the back of my head and also on my spine. And this meant that the first treatment did not work, and that this cancer was now immune, in a sense, to that first treatment, because it hadn't, and so it wouldn't work again.
It had gotten stronger. So
Exactly. And so it's really dangerous when you have cancer and it comes back. Now,
how old were you?
This time I was 5, and no, sorry, I was 7 this time. Yes, and I remember the devastation at this point. I was old enough to understand that it wasn't completely normal for a little girl to lose her hair and to have to go live in the hospital and learn how to read in a hospital bed and celebrate birthday parties in the hospital playroom where everyone is too sick to eat the cake and a lot of patients are too sick to sing the happy birthday song. Like that's your life in the hospital for a child. I knew that it wasn't normal, and so I sensed more of the devastation of what it meant, especially because the first treatment did not work. Yeah. And so while it seemed like the road of my life up until this point had potholes and bumps and rocks, and maybe it was a dirt road, suddenly it was this whoosh. It felt like it just been washed away. Because we really had no options, and we could really see, well, I guess what we thought was the end.
What were the options? I mean, we're talking about cancer that's come back and is in multiple areas of your body. So what are your options at this point? 7 years old.
The option came as an experimental treatment that had just been developed from Mayo Clinic for patients who relapsed with Ewing sarcoma, which is exactly my case. That was the miracle of it, Rick, is that the first treatment kept me alive just barely long enough to join the experiment for the second treatment. So I did.
Wow.
I joined the experiment. And this time I had to stay in the hospital for 24/7 while I received this chemotherapy because it was experimental. We figured if it didn't work, then at least I would contribute to the knowledge and to the experiment. But it was worth a try, obviously. And so I was connected to an IV stand this time. And sometimes I wanted to leave that in my dust because it's so, you just have to wheel it everywhere you go. You're just living in the hospital. And again, lost my hair. I had to have radiation treatments on the back of my head and on my back. And radiation it burns. I had, obviously, my throat received it because of the same location. Mm-hmm. So I remember Thanksgiving came, and I couldn't eat a thing, and that was torture. It's okay, I've eaten several. I eat like 3 servings now to make up for it. But it's difficult, and you're in the hospital. You're feeling nauseated and sick all of the time. It's rough. It was really rough. That reminds me, during one of my off weeks, you receive the chemotherapy, and then you have some time to recover, and before you go for another treatment. So in one of my off weeks when I was home, I remember we went to see Miss America. She was in town, and I really wanted to meet her. And so we went and waited in this long line, and I studied her as we were waiting. And, obviously gorgeous, and I loved how she did her hair. She obviously had a lot more than me because I was completely bald. I had no hair, no eyelashes, no eyebrows, any beauty feature gone. And I was just stick thin and just really weak. But I just remember really admiring how her shoes matched her outfit and her jewelry, and I got an autographed photo of her, and I just loved meeting her. But as we walked away, when we were in the parking lot, my mom said, I looked up at her, I just beamed a big smile, as if I had just discovered something, and I said, Mom, guess what? I am so much prettier than Miss America. I don't know why. I had no reason to think that, because I definitely was not beautiful. But that, I believe what I was feeling was inner beauty, and was, we can call it character for guys. But it's, feeling that inner beauty. And I learned early on really what is important, You may not have your hair, but you're still you. Yeah. And you can still be and feel beautiful. To see things with an eternal and a spiritual perspective, with spiritual eyes, you see truly what's important.
Yeah, very true. We're at 7 years old now, talking about your second bout with cancer.
Yes.
And you at that age had been called on by people at the hospital to go and help other people. You started serving other people in this situation. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, there are. The hospital started asking me to come and help represent the patients and provide the patient perspective. When they would do different fundraising functions and, of course, the Festival of Trees. And so I just started speaking and sharing my story. And you know what, Rick? I haven't stopped. I feel like that is part of the purpose of why I am still alive, is to have that opportunity to share that.
So at 7 years old, you'd survived cancer twice. Your leg was shorter, 3 inches shorter, with an experimental hip. And then you went from that. What happened? Well, the experimental therapy.
Yep, it worked.
It worked,
Yay!
Obviously, because you're sitting here.
I remember the last chemotherapy treatment I had, Rick, and it was a golden day. I was not looking back. I walked out of the hospital with a list of things that I wanted to do and accomplish in life. And I think life is too short for just a to-do list. We need a dream list of everything that we want to do and accomplish. I think we need to just live our lives to continually add to that and check things off of it. So I did. I started that day when I walked out. Little things like ride a horse or have a Halloween party, go to school. And it just continued to grow. And my whole life I've been doing that. So starting in junior high, I started doing student government up until college when I served as student body president. And learned so much from all of those experiences that, I wanted to learn sign language and tutor disadvantaged children and go to college and be in college plays. I love acting. And study broadcast journalism. Then intern at my favorite TV news station. And then now work in my dream job. Life is great, Rick.
Well, you've done many of those things, haven't you?
Yep. Those are all things that I've checked off.
That's
of course,
great.
the most important one and the biggest one is to be cured of cancer. And I did. I hit that 5-year mark. I'm now cured of cancer, and it's never come back.
So 5 years, so that would be at 12 years old. They declared you
Yep, I was
alive.
That's right. Guaranteed.
That's great. Shante, there was a time in about 2007, I believe, that you had a discovery about your health that took you into another experience, another adventure with your health. Talk about that discovery.
That's a great way of putting it. Another adventure, one that I did not think I obviously had in my future. That's why I say it's good that we can't see around the corner, right? Just previous to that, once I graduated from high school, I had my right leg lengthened with a Lazaroff brace for 6 months, where you literally stretch the brace, your bone is cut, and you stretch the brace a millimeter a day, and your bone slowly stretches and grows back together. It's an amazing process. And so I had to relearn how to walk after that again.
But it made your legs so they're the same length.
Almost. We didn't get as much as I needed. I still had 1.25 inches to go. But that's as far as they could go. I grew 2 inches of bone, but it wasn't enough. But that was as far as my muscles and the leg would accommodate. And so I did all of that. I thought, oh, I'm still not there. But I thought, well, at least it's a lot closer. And then a year after that, I went back to the same hero bone surgeon, Dr. Peter Stevens. I went back to him, the one who did my experimental surgery when I was 3. And I said, can you shorten my left leg by chance?
To equal things up, huh?
Yes. He said, I thought you'd never ask. He didn't want to mention it because he thought I'd been through enough. But I said, no, I would love to wear flip-flops someday. So let's do it. So then we shortened my left leg. And if I could recommend one to the other, I would recommend shortening your leg instead of lengthening it. It's a much quicker process. I'm happy to say I've done both. And so that is what preceded all of this. So that was can I just tell you, an amazing day when I stepped out of the hospital bed and both of my feet hit the ground for the first time since I was 4. They had never done that with my heels. And I walked down the hospital hallway, just tears coming down my face. I was so overwhelmed and so full of joy as I walked. And the best part now is I have like 20 pairs of flip-flops because I got to make up for all
stay
this.
On.
That's right.
You know, it's amazing. I knew you before that operation and after. And you walked fast before that operation when your legs weren't the same. And now it's like a walking race, you know, whenever I see you. It's incredible to see you walking around and having that operation be a success.
Thank you.
Soon after that, you had another discovery.
Exactly. So in 2007, I started becoming really, I thought I was just long-term sick. Like I had a cough that would come if I moved a lot, if I walked a lot or laid down, then I would start coughing a lot. I just thought I had a long-term cold. And I could not even walk from the bus stop to the front doors of work without having to stop and catch my breath.
And it just started developing and got stronger.
Over a couple of months. And I finally realized, wait a minute, this is not a cold. I think something else is going on here. So I just went to my general doctor thinking that it wouldn't be any big deal. And after just a few tests, they said, Shante, you have cardiomyopathy, which is an enlarged and failing heart. And I remember just knocked the wind out of me. That was not what I was expecting to hear at all. And come to find out, it's a result of the previous chemotherapy which I had. And everyone who had that it's very common for people who had that type of chemotherapy as a child to have adult onset cardiomyopathy. And it was devastating, absolutely devastating. I thought, honestly, that this was the end or near the end. My heart was functioning at 30%, which means normal is 60%, really. And so I was functioning at half of how much blood my heart was pumping. And any more than that, I think you get down to 20%, you get put on heart transplant lists.
Oh,
and
boy.
so it was declining rapidly. So it was key critical for them to find it at that time.
Is it correctable at all?
Thankfully, there's medication that they can put you on. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's a really good medication, and it doesn't work for everyone. But they gave it to me, and my heart actually increased. Last time they checked it was at 55%. So
Oh, that's great.
It's like almost normal now. But at the time, it was devastating. And they also found, while they were doing tests on my heart, they found a growth on my liver that was literally taking over my liver. It was a benign tumor. And so that was unrelated, but they found it at the exact same time. So it was like a double whammy.
Yeah.
And I had to have several surgeries leading up to a liver resection surgery where I then grew back my liver. And that was the most physically difficult, challenging experience of my life. I remember after the surgery, I had probably about 100 staples. They literally cut my stomach open and to remove the liver. After the surgery, at one point, my epidural medicine ran out. That's my pain medicine. And I instantly felt, this was not even 24 hours after the surgery, I instantly felt all of the pain of it. And while the nurse was frantically trying to, they're not perfect. No one's perfect, and mistakes happen. And but it was a very difficult experience for me. But I remember the pain being so great that I couldn't even breathe, because you breathe and it feels like you're being stabbed by just 1,000 knives in your stomach. But you have to breathe. And so you're caught between this. I have to breathe, but if I do, then the pain is so great, I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah.
And you can't even talk. The only thing I could do is clench my sister's hand so that it turned white. And I just take as tiny little breaths as you can. And to try to, I can't even explain the amount of pain it was, other than saying if I would have had the chance to die in that instant, I would have chosen it, because the pain was so great, and so it lasted so long. And I've never had to experience that, and I hope I never again, and I hope no one else does. But it was, I'm grateful I didn't have that choice to not enjoy that anymore. But my father, they found someone else in the hospital who can come and give me a blessing with my father. And the medicine, they gave me the medicine again and it kicked in. But that, and then the recovery after that experience was so intense and so prolonged and difficult for me that it was probably one of the most difficult, physically challenging experiences of my adult life.
Mm-hmm. And you were you would have been about 26 at this point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to run a few questions by you and just have you respond to them.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on how to choose to live a life?
That's a great question. How to choose to live a life.
Mm-hmm. Is it a choice?
Most definitely. Mm-hmm. I think in any situation, in any instance, every single day, we have the choice to focus on abundance or lack. Those exist simultaneously in the same plane, and so it's just up to us. My mom always taught me, whatever you focus on expands and fills your life. So focus on what you can do. Focus on what you do have. You know, when I found out about my heart and I thought I was dying, I went to a graveyard because obviously I was contemplating death and I wanted to be alone and I needed to mourn this and process it and decide how I felt about all of this. And I remember sitting there crying and very upset. and praying, asking question after question after question. Why? Mm-hmm. And what about this? What about this? And I'm not done living yet. And I asked the Lord a lot of questions. At one point during that, I honestly, I looked up and I felt the sun on my face, and I felt comforted. And at that same moment, I felt the words, "What do you know?" And in a sense, to me, it was almost as if the Lord were helping me to focus on what I know and what I have. And instantly, my thoughts changed. What do I know? I know that I have a loving family that is there to support me. I don't have to do this alone. And I know that God cares about me and that he has preserved my life up until this point. My life is in his hands. Why do I need to worry? And I know that because of Jesus Christ's atonement, that he knows how to succor me. He knows how to comfort me through all of these trials. And because of that, because of the atonement, I have hope. What do I know? Those are the things I know. What else do I know? I know I'm not dead right now. So why am I acting like it? So you focus on what you can do, what you have. And in fact, I love to tell the story of Captain Moroni. When he held up the title of liberty, he did not ask for that circumstance. Was it Amalickiah, the wicked king? He didn't ask for Amalickiah to come against him and to try to take over the kingdom. But suddenly he was thrown into the situation. Just like I didn't ask to have cancer. We don't ask for a great majority of the trials that we receive. True, we can bring some into our lives. That's why we need to obey the commandments, so we can avoid those.
Yes.
But there are others that it's c'est la vie. That's my favorite.
It's part of life.
Yes, that's life. Mm-hmm. And so I love the analogy of Captain Moroni. What did he do? He held up the title of liberty. And it said, in memory of our God, our religion, our freedom, and our peace, our wives, our children. What did he do? He reminded everyone what they were fighting for. And they held on. These are their values, and they held on to them, and they refocused. So they were focusing on the positive. And there's power in that. There's power there. And so I think that's one way to choose to live your life abundantly. You know what? It's okay to admit that it's hard. It's hard. And if anything, that is what comforted me from others when I was going through this. When I would tell them, you know what? I have an enlarged and failing heart. Those who responded with not necessarily pity, but just sympathy and saying, I'm sorry, that must be difficult. That must be hard. You just admit it. And it's okay. It's okay to say that this is a challenge for me. This is a trial. After that, but we don't dwell on that. Mm-hmm. We recognize it. You process it. You don't dwell there. You don't live there continually.
Well, as I look at the life story that you've shared with us today, mm-hmm. From a very early age, you took your challenge or adversity, and you made something of it. You've turned it around. You've helped others in many instances. You've probably shown a great deal of empathy to others in their lives. That's true. It does. It teaches you. I think even if you haven't been through the same thing that someone else is enduring, mm-hmm. You're right. It's the adversity which is universal, and you've tasted adversity in one form or another, and you can relate, mm-hmm. you can sympathize, and you can support each other. It refines us, mm-hmm. and helps us to become who the Lord wants us to become, and it's only through adversity that we can see things with these spiritual eyes. Nothing puts things in perspective like being literally just
forced to stay in a hospital bed. You look out the window and you can overlook the city, and you think of all the different places you would rather be and all of the different things you would rather be doing. And things become very, very clear in terms of what is important to you. If I could leave this hospital bed right now, what would I do? I think so many times in life we forget we have options, and that we are in control, and that life literally is a choose-your-own-adventure story. We're in the driver's seat, and that becomes crystal clear when you're in the hospital. And then when you leave and you carry that with you, each day becomes an adventure and a challenge. But it does, and I believe that adversity prepares us for the glory which the Lord has in store. That's what he tells us in D&C 136:31. He said, we must be tried in all things. That my people must be tried in all things, that they may be prepared for the glory which I have for them.
That's a great point. Very good point. I have two pictures in my mind as we've been talking, and both of them, I think, lead to the same principle I'd like you to comment on. The first one is when you were young, and they couldn't find a vein for your IV, and you prayed, and they found a vein. And the second one is when you had this more recent discovery about your heart and your liver, and you went to the graveyard. And again, where did you turn? And
right.
I think there's an important principle there for all of us. I'd like you to comment on turning to the Lord.
Well, he is the source of all love and light and peace and joy and comfort. All good things come from Christ. I believe that with all of my heart. And I believe that it's only when we turn to him that we can find that true peace. Isn't it amazing? People who are in the middle of very difficult situations can keep functioning even, and can keep not only that, but they have hope in their hearts. How is that? Isn't that amazing? But I think it's because of Jesus Christ and the hope which he gave us through the atonement. He understands. He not only suffered for our sins, but for all of our pains and our afflictions. And he understands what it's like, so he can comfort us. He can succor his people. And I think that's, well, as we know from personal experience and from reading the scriptures, that is often the outcome of adversity, is you are humbled.
Mm-hmm.
You are humbled.
Yeah.
You turn to him.
And you turn to him. And great things really do happen from that. I really like what you said about becoming who he wants you to become through that adversity. I just have a few more questions for you.
Sure.
Before we close our program.
Okay.
What's on your list now? You talked about a dream list.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you can share there with us that you would say, this is on my dream list, this is what's next?
Okay, well, I have random things on my dream list, like fly in a hot air balloon, and I want to fly in an airplane, a little airplane, where you can overlook the valley.
Uh-huh.
I think that would be so exciting. And then I also have life goals on there. Mm-hmm. I would love to become a mother someday and raise my own family. And I love my work, my job. So I plan on continuing in my career.
It's exciting that you are continuing to build that dream list.
Oh, another one has always been to pursue higher education, to get my graduate degree. Mm-hmm. And I actually just started that this fall. I'm getting my master's of public administration. And, another one I've always wanted to do, Rick, is play the harp. And this is something that was on that early list.
Uh-huh.
And it's also one of those things which could easily just be put off all of your life thinking, it's like a little kid wants a pony, right? Maybe it's not very realistic. But this past summer, I thought, now I need to just do this now. You know, there's no time like the present. And so I went and bought just a little Celtic harp. And I love my harp. I love playing it, and I feel so happy when I do it. And so I was, more than that, I was just thrilled that I'd finally done this thing that I've always wanted to do. Another goal of mine and is temple worship. I want to incorporate that more deeply into my life. I love the temples from an early age, and my mom probably helped instill this in me. But another thing she did when she first found out that I had cancer is she bundled up all the kids because it was cold outside, and she and my dad took us all to the temple grounds, and we just walked around. And she said she felt so much peace being reminded that we are an eternal family. And even though she did not know what would happen to her little girl, she knew that we would always be together.
Shante, will you share with us a little bit about your feelings about the influence of your parents over your life?
Yes. My dad is the most amazingly patient, strong, supportive man that anyone could ever want in a father. And my mom is the most positive person I have ever met. She is the complete, just ray of sunshine in my life. And I'm just so grateful for both of them, for their dedication to me and for their just continual love and support. I've never been a parent, but I imagine that it's got to be difficult, especially when your child is I think you want to help them so much and in every way, and then suddenly when things are out of your hands and out of your control, when they have a devastating disease, which it will likely kill them, how do you respond? What do you do with that? And I'm so grateful, they chose to respond with hope and with a firm footing in the gospel. And that made a big difference. That made a really big difference for us as a family.
Wonderful. Shante, as we wrap up our program today, the title of our show is Why I Believe. And I'd like to hear, if you could share with our listeners your testimony, why you believe.
I believe because I can't imagine not believing. I have seen so many miracles. I have seen the Lord's hand in my life time and time again. And I just am so grateful for that. I have seen how much He loves me and how much He loves all of us. And that the gospel fills me with so much peace and joy and happiness. It's a gospel of happiness. And I feel that, and I'm so grateful for it. And I've seen that even through adversity and trials, that we can be happy, and that the Lord helps us through His tender mercies. And when I was in the hospital, even in the midst of this battlefield for life, you can still, the Lord helps you to still find things to be happy about and to focus on. I didn't tell you this earlier, but I would go into the hospital basement and practice the piano. And music filled my soul during that time. It was a great blessing to me. I would look out my hospital window at night and overlook the city and see the beautiful state capitol, and it would remind me of a castle. And I would imagine going there someday. I passed out Valentines on Valentine's Day to all of my neighbor patients and my extended family of the nurses and doctors in the hospital. And I would dance with the giant teddy bear in the playroom. So there were things to be happy about. And I think that is true in every situation of life that we will find ourselves in. And I think it is it is through the hope that comes from Jesus Christ that we can do that and that we can focus on that. He loves us. He loves us so much. And he's not going to let us go through any of this alone. He's always there for us. And we just need to hold on. Hold on to those things that we do know. Hold on to our values and to those things which he has revealed to us about how to lead a happy, productive, successful life. And I think we do that, and we can't help but be happy, no matter what life brings. And in the end, we just take it step by step. You don't know what's around the next corner, but we do what we can. You do, and you focus on what you know, and most importantly, that is that you know that Heavenly Father loves you, that there is a purpose and a plan, and just have faith in that.
Shante, thank you so much for being with us today on Why I Believe and sharing your testimony, your spirit, your story. It's an inspiration, and loved having you on today. Thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here.
Thanks. You've been listening to Why I Believe on the Mormon Channel. For more information on this program and other programs on the Mormon Channel, please go to radio.lds.org. Thanks for being with us today. Have a great day.